There was a moment recently at General Hospital that I simply cannot get out of my head. It happened during a seemingly standard confrontation in the hallways, the kind of tense exchange we see every day. Britt Westbourne, overwhelmed and frustrated, lost her temper with Anna Devane. Britt demanded compassion, her voice echoing with the exhaustion of a woman who had just survived a harrowing ordeal in Tortola and the cruel deception of a fake Huntington's disease diagnosis. But it wasn't Britt's outburst that caught my attention. It was Anna's reaction. Anna stood there, absorbing the anger, but her eyes were entirely vacant. She wasn't looking at Britt. She was looking through her. Something about that moment stayed with me. It was a chilling stillness, a quiet void that suggested Anna was listening to a conversation no one else in the room could hear. At first, it didn't seem important, just the heavy toll of Anna's recent traumas. But as the days pass, that vacant stare feels more like a countdown to something devastating. If we start following the thread of Anna's return from that clinic in France, a terrifying picture begins to form. We all know Anna has reclaimed her position as the police chief, ousting Dante Falconeri and projecting an image of absolute authority and control. She is handing out promotions, testing loyalties, and investigating the Pierce shooting with the precision of a seasoned WSB veteran. But that is just the surface. Beneath the badge and the composed exterior, Anna is fighting a losing battle against her own mind. The hallucinations of Peter August have not stopped. In fact, they seem to be growing stronger, taking root in her psyche. Peter's phantom voice is constantly whispering in her ear, twisting her reality and pushing her down a dark, destructive path of revenge. And right now, that path seems to be leading directly to Britt Westbourne. I keep coming back to the history between these three, the manipulation, the pain, and the sheer devastation Peter brought into both of their lives. Now, in Anna's fractured mind, Peter is using Britt's recent outburst as the ultimate catalyst, convincing Anna that eliminating Britt is the only way to finally end the nightmare. This brings us to the shadow beneath the story. While everyone is focused on Anna's public investigations and Britt's attempts to rebuild her life after the Ross Cullum nightmare, there is a second, entirely disconnected narrative quietly unfolding across town. Jason Morgan has returned to Port Charles, but he is fundamentally changed. His time in WSB captivity stripped away his old priorities, leaving him with one singular focus, his son Danny. Jason has made the monumental decision to step away from Sonny Corinthos' mob organization, a choice that redefines his entire existence. But transitioning out of that life is never simple, and Jason likely has lingering, highly sensitive business to handle. Perhaps a trip to sever ties completely, or a secret meeting to ensure his family's safety. Because he cannot directly watch over Danny during this crucial window, he needs someone he can trust implicitly. And despite the slap she recently delivered across his face, despite the tension and the heartbreak, Jason trusts Britt Westbourne. His motivation is entirely mundane, rooted in parental concern rather than heroics. He just wants to ask Britt to keep an eye on his son. But this is where the unseen connection begins to pull these two separate worlds into a catastrophic collision. Jason's simple need for a trusted friend is about to intersect with Anna's hallucination-fueled descent into violence. I keep wondering whether Anna is already putting a plan into motion. We have to remember who Anna Devane is. She's a master spy, a brilliant tactician, and even with her mind compromised by Peter's ghost, she retains her lethal skill set. If she truly believes that Britt needs to be eliminated, she isn't going to just walk up to her in the crowded lobby of General Hospital. She is going to isolate her. Maybe there's another layer here. Anna would meticulously craft a scenario, a trap designed to corner Britt in a place where no one could hear her scream, where no one could intervene. She would use her authority as police chief to manipulate the situation, ensuring Britt is entirely cut off from any potential rescue. And then there is Jason. It doesn't seem accidental that Jason is currently trying to navigate his new life while Britt and Anna are locked in this silent psychological death spiral. What if we're missing something crucial about Jason's timing? Jason operates on instinct, and his instincts are currently entirely focused on securing Danny's future. He doesn't know about Anna's hallucinations. He doesn't know about the phantom Peter August dictating the police chief's actions. He just knows he needs to find Britt. I can picture Jason tracking Britt down, following her trail right into the heart of Anna's carefully laid trap. He isn't walking into that space as the legendary enforcer looking for a fight. He is walking in as a father looking for a favor. He is completely blind to the lethal snare that has been set, making his arrival the one chaotic variable that Anna's fractured mind could never have anticipated. The tension surrounding this impending intersection is almost suffocating. We are not looking at a sudden, shocking twist for the sake of a gasp. We are watching a slow, agonizing buildup of dread. Imagine the trap springing shut. Britt, who just survived the terror of Tortola and the psychological torture of a fake terminal illness, suddenly finds herself facing a woman she respects, a woman who is now looking at her with the cold, dead eyes of an executioner. The physical and emotional weight of that moment would be staggering. Anna, driven by the relentless screaming voice of Peter in her head, would strike with the precision of a WSB assassin. Britt is resilient, she is a survivor, and she would undoubtedly fight back with everything she has. But against a highly trained, hallucinating Anna Devane, Britt would quickly find herself outmatched. The violence wouldn't be dramatic for the cameras, it would be brutal, desperate, and tragic. Britt would likely sustain severe injuries as she tries to fend off an attack she doesn't even understand. And just as the situation reaches its most critical, fatal point, the door opens. Jason steps into the room. The sheer whiplash of that moment for Jason would be paralyzing. He arrives expecting to have a quiet, perhaps slightly awkward conversation about Danny, only to be confronted with a bloodbath. He sees Britt bleeding, fighting for her life, and he sees Anna, his friend, an ally, the chief of police, wielding the weapon. The confusion would only last a fraction of a second before Jason's ingrained combat instincts take over. He would have to launch himself into the fray, not to kill, but to subdue. And that is where the danger multiplies exponentially. Trying to disarm and restrain a highly trained agent who is actively hallucinating and fighting for what she believes is her survival is a near impossible task. In the ensuing struggle, the chaos would be absolute. Jason would be forced to use extreme physical force to stop Anna from delivering a fatal blow to Britt. But Anna is not going to just surrender. She will fight Jason with the same lethal intent, perhaps even seeing him as another manifestation of Peter's enemies. In the brutal crossfire of trying to save Britt and disarm Anna, it is highly probable that Anna herself will suffer significant injuries. Jason will be forced to hurt a woman he respects deeply in order to save the woman he once loved. When the dust finally settles, the room will be a tableau of tragedy. Britt will be lying there, broken and bleeding. Anna will be incapacitated, her body battered, and her mind completely shattered by the violent interruption of her hallucination. And Jason will be left standing in the center of the wreckage, his hands stained, forced to face the horrifying question, what exactly happened to Anna Devane? But I can't shake the feeling that the tragedy doesn't end with the three adults in that room. There is another shadow lingering at the edge of this narrative, and that is Danny Morgan. Danny is fiercely protective of his father and incredibly curious about Jason's world. We have already seen Danny insert himself into dangerous situations, like uncovering the truth about Rocco shooting Ross Cullum. What if Danny, wanting to spend more time with his dad or curious about where Jason was going, secretly followed him? The thought of that young boy standing just outside the door or peering through a window, witnessing the sheer brutality of this confrontation is heartbreaking. He wouldn't just see a fight. He would see his father, the man who just promised to leave the violent mob life behind, covered in blood, standing over the bodies of the police chief and a doctor. Danny could inadvertently become the sole witness to one of the most dangerous, complex, and deeply tragic confrontations in Port Charles history. This entire scenario flips the traditional narrative on its head. Jason didn't ride in on a white horse, armed with the knowledge of Anna's madness, ready to save the day. He just stumbled into a nightmare because he was trying to be a good father. He becomes the accidental savior, the man who breaks Anna's trap not through tactical brilliance, but through sheer, chaotic coincidence. But in doing so, he exposes the darkest, most closely guarded secret in town, the total psychological collapse of Anna Devane. The physical wounds Britt and Anna suffer in that room will eventually heal, but the psychological scars will run much deeper. How does Britt process being hunted by the police chief? How does Jason explain to Danny what he saw, especially after promising a life free of violence? And what happens to Anna when the hallucinations finally recede and she wakes up in a hospital bed to realize she nearly murdered Britt Westbourne? The fallout from this single, violently interrupted moment will ripple through the entire town, challenging loyalties, destroying careers, and forcing everyone to confront the demons that Peter August left behind. We are watching the pieces fall into place, moving closer and closer to a devastating impact. The quiet conversations, the vacant stares, the mundane requests for babysitting, they are all leading to a locked room where survival is not guaranteed. Something feels unfinished. The trap is set, the players are moving into position, and the story is only just beginning to reveal its true, terrifying shape.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.